Ladies, gentlemen, or what have you, I'm Orion Lovell.
And I'm Travis Mattingly.
And you're listening to Tooth and Nail, a monstrous podcast, where today we're going to continue our discussion on Dark Souls the First, continuing along from Anor Londo, the golden city that it is, to the, some colder and lonelier places in the world of Lordran, this many-circled place.
Adjectives. Adverbs, maybe.
Possibly a colon. Yeah, so we're going to talk about three places. We got three places on the docket today. We're going to do the Painted World of Ariamis, which is my favorite level in the game. We're going to do the Catacombs, which is another cool level. And then we're going to do the Tomb of the Giants, which is okay.
Tomb of Giants is there.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I like the Tomb of Giants in the same way that I like a Nest of Skeletons. You know?
A lot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, thematically I like it. The actual play of it is fine. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, we continue with the Painted World of Ariamis. We jump into this giant painting Mario style, and we end up in this very cold, lonely place. You gotta do a lot of shit to get there. You gotta
gotta get some kind of doll, right?
Yeah, you gotta get a malformed doll or something like a sad doll, just sad in the face.
It's peculiar.
Yeah.
That's the word they use, which really just means horrendous.
Yeah. But you gotta pick that bad boy up from your original home in the Undead Asylum. So you gotta go back there, you fight some Black Knights. It's nothing really major. By this point, we're kind of versed in taking on Black Knights. It's kind of a shock to... I mean, this entire area is very heavily obscured in, you gotta go into this little side passage up Firelink Shrine, and then pretend to be a bird egg, and then the giant bird comes in, takes you along a merry adventure.
Honestly, even when you're doing it, you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's very adventure game logic.
You jump on what looks like an out of the map area that you've glitched your way onto, but then it leads up to the bird nest, and then you're like, pretend to be bird. All right, and you just curl up into an egg.
Yeah.
And then wah 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 off to the Undead Asylum, which we've all seen before.
Yeah, we've all seen before. Do you want to talk about the hidden... I didn't make any notes about this, so that we're going to be doing this bad book report style, but do you want to talk about the...
I mean, it's kind of a bad book report boss. It's just the first boss again, but instead when it hits the ground, it goes...
Yeah, it does magic attacks. Otherwise, it is not appreciably different in terms of its physical design. It still is a big booty with a club.
Can we copy your schoolwork? Yeah, just make it a little different. That's it.
And then it added red magic.
Yeah.
So you come back and you fight that boss. The floor collapses, and that horrified me the first day because I didn't know better.
That's true. When you walk in, it just kind of, you fall and you're like, I'm dead, but then it's a boss.
Yeah. What is the actual name? It's the something demon? It's the stray demon? Is that what it's called?
It's stray demons in Dark Souls 3, but I think they're just called Asylum Demon.
No, it's got its own little boss fight title card. It's not just Asylum Demon Part 2. Stray Demon. All right. Yes, I was right. It's called the Stray Demon.
You were correct.
Boom. And you fight it in a very similar way. It has, as far as I can remember, much of the same attacks as the Asylum Demon, +1, where it hits the wall and a big explosion comes out from the center of the thing.
Yes.
This is actually a weird thing where the boss is only accessible if you run through the center of the floor. If you stay to the edges, the floor won't collapse. And you kind of want it to be that way because you pick up the crest shield, which has all the magic resistance from Oscar. You find Oscar, the original guy. And
but hollowed.
Yeah, but hollowed. And so he attacks you, but you beat him up, and then you take his shield off of him, which has a whole bunch of magic defense, which you kind of need for the boss. Whereas typically You have it in the reverse order, where the game introduces, with a little bit of exploration, the thing you need for the boss, and then dumps the boss on you. So it's interesting where you kind of do this little return to the Undead Asylum in reverse. And then you fight some Black Knights later. The rooms are still fairly claustrophobic, so the Black Knights tend to have range on you, but otherwise, parry them, and you won't have too much of a trouble. And then you grab this doll, you bring it back to this giant painting, and then you go up inside it, Super Mario style, and that leads you into the Painted World of Ariamis. And the Painted World of Ariamis is this very wintry, you expect it to be like that one side quest in Oblivion, where everything is all painted.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
That would have been kind of neat. It is not, though I think they have kind of like a blurry filter on it, watching some of the, going back and doing it again, and then watching some of the gameplay. I swear they have like a little blurry filter on it.
Is it... It's been a bit. Is it snowing actively?
No, it's not actively snowing. Okay.
I was gonna say, because like usually when people put blur filters on, it's to make some kind of like faux blizzard effect. But if it's not actively snowing,
no, all the snow has fallen. This is a world in stasis, frozen, quite literally.
It's a winter wonderland.
Kinda.
Of death.
Wait for the punchline. So the very first enemy that you run into in the Painted World of Ariamis is just some fan favorite hollows. They're more or less the same as they have always been. They are just a little bit tougher here. They have more HP and they do a little bit more damage. I think they're here because they, like what we just did, set up a punchline where you fight a swarm of them just to get the feel for a regular hollow, and then you go up some stairs and you find yourself an engorged hollow. Yeah, these guys are pretty gross.
They are literally large walking tumors.
Yeah, pretty much. I always think of them as marshmallows. As like big,
that makes
gross...
them a lot less disgusting.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they're big, red, pulsating marshmallows.
Okay, well, yeah, when you put it like that.
Not gross at all. So these guys, they look like giant tumory marshmallows with arms and legs, and they have a mouth hole where the mouth should be, and it is like this puffy gaping hole in their face. It's pretty upsetting.
Ugh.
So these guys, they come in two flavors. They come in hollow torch kind, and then they come in magic fireball kind. The fireball, when they shoot it out, it comes out of their puffy mouths, or like they like, I swear it comes out of their puffy mouth. And
I know they can spew toxic gas out of their puffy mouth.
Well, when you kill them, they like burst. They're like,
oh, they have 2 toxic attacks.
Yeah, they're like pustule things, and then when you kill them, they burst, and you gotta roll out of the way really quickly because they explode in toxic damage.
Ugh.
And that can mess your day up proper. It happens really quickly too. You have to it's a real timing based thing to roll out of the way before they explode and get all their toxic on you.
It kind of it maybe incentivizes a little bit of ranged combat. Are they easy to kill, or do they have a lot of health?
They're about 3 hitters.
Okay. So not super easy to whittle down with arrows?
No, I mean, nothing's ever incredibly easy to whittle down with arrows in Dark Souls 1.
That's true.
These guys, they're meant to, harass you, I believe. While you're dealing with the hordes of other stuff, because things like to swarm you. There are a lot of these marshmallow guys around, and then also hollows, and then also some of the things that we deal with later on. This is kind of a hordy area.
These are like the guys that zone you.
Yeah.
You're like, I need to kill all the little guys, but I also kind of need to kill the big guys, but I don't want to get toxic.
Yeah.
So I just roll around a lot.
Yeah, pretty much. Where are they keeping their fire? I like to...
It's one of the pulsy sacks.
Yeah, I guess
so. They keep it.
I'm thinking maybe their toxic is flammable, and so when they shoot out fire, it's just they're shooting globules of them, their pus at you.
They've got flint and steel on the inside of their gross mouths.
Yeah. This is a level full of very interesting things. There are a lot of gotcha enemies here. So there are those guys, and then as you continue on, you'll probably, at least in the path that I typically take, I'm more likely to run into these crow demons before I run into anything else. And these crow demons are also very interesting. They're like harpies, right?
Yeah, they've got the long, like, from the elbow to the knee are humanish.
Yeah.
And then all the arms are just wings.
Yeah, the arms are wings.
They've got, what, a crow head?
Yes.
And they have the talons on the legs? I can't find any pictures with legs.
And I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe they're just human from the waist down.
Okay, so, like, from, like, the neck down.
Yeah.
So it's they're, like, 60% human, 40%...
Yeah. They're missing vaginas as well.
Well, that's good.
Leads me to the only reason why I bring it up is because last time we were talking about how Quellig should be missing nipples, and so maybe she just is missing nipples. Like, maybe when you turn into a demon,
undead, you just kind of
when you turn into a demon, off go the genitalia, and that's just not a road you take anymore. You no longer take the path of genitals.
What a weird side theory.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
What I'm saying is demons don't fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, so suck on that, 4chan. I don't know.
Rule 34.pa whatever.
Yeah. So these crow demons, I think they're... So, like, everything having to do with this one specific goddess, Velka, seems to be pooled in here because Velka had, like, all of the god-slaying powers. And so I think these are just, like, avatars of Velka. Hanging out in here, being entrapped. So, like, the Painted World of Ariamis as a lore level, from a lore standpoint, is like the gods' prison. It's the gulag for all of the stuff that the gods were afraid of. Which, like, makes me wonder what's the deal with these hollows that hang out around here as well. I think maybe, like, the tumorous ones, I don't know, maybe it's like some sort of special plague. Like, they were, I don't know, carriers of some horrifying infection that the gods wanted to seal away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm just like spitballing here.
Like why it's only in here.
Yeah. I don't know. That is just a thought I had that I thought was kind of cool and evocative. I find that the crow demons are pretty difficult to fight. They have a fair bit of HP and they hit pretty hard.
From the vague recollection I have is that, like, the first one I came across, I thought it would just be like a 3 or 4 hitter, but it ended up kind of surprising me and taking me down fairly quickly.
Yeah, they're problem childs. They're very big, so they have quite a bit of range on you, and they hit fairly hard. They're very fast as well, and they come at you from all sorts of angles. This is a part where there's a part in particular where they're not hanging, but they're like perched up on various crenellations on this crumbling tower. And they jump down at you and surprise you, and in this very specific area, you don't have a lot of space to move around in, so this is another instance of Dark Souls making the environment more treacherous in order to make the difficulty, the encounter more difficult.
You know what they do have?
What do they do have?
They got a nasty hug.
They jump in the air, and they stand on your shoulders, and they give you some pecks. I kind of have a problem with this attack because, again, Dark Souls doesn't do flying enemies well. It messes with the camera so much. It feels awkward. Yeah,
it's kind of easy to avoid if the camera is nice.
Yeah,
because they jump at where you are/were. Yeah, so if you just go left or right.
Yes, they should in a vacuum, but in the environment that you're in, because you often encounter them on stairs and on elevated areas, they often just jump straight over you.
Right.
And then, your movement is tied to where you're facing, so a lot of the time they'll jump over me, I'll be like, where did they go? And then I'll fall off something because my character is, like, turned themselves around like a tank.
Dark Souls.
Yeah. Yep. They're very spindly as well. I don't know. I think they're
the gauntest little, like...
Yeah, I think it's neat. And I wonder, it might be like something to, I don't know, it's a cool piece of design. I like the way that they're made taller and spindlier. It's very, it hits that mannequin fear of something that is human but not enough. So in the same way that's like Slenderman is scary.
Yeah. Uncanny Valley fear is some of the best fear.
It is, yeah. I really like these guys, even if they are difficult, occasionally frustrating to fight. Moving along, there's a kind of rat that you can find in here, a snow white albino snow rat.
Anything special about them? Or
no,
are they just rats?
They run from you, which would be like a tactic if they were trying to ambush you, but for the most part, they run away and then occasionally will turn and try to swarm at you. You don't run into very many of them. There are maybe like a handful of them in this level. I think, a lot of this is a level meant to unsettle you in very many ways. And, something as simple as just giving you an enemy with a different color can be... I think it's all to that end of trying to unsettle you and make you, feel like you're in the middle of an alien, forgotten area of the world, which you are. Which is cool. Oh, they do toxic damage as well. Instead of poison, they do toxic, which is...
just like stronger rats.
Yeah, so they're like stronger rats. Not anything crazy to look at. They're still undead. In this spitball that I have this idea of maybe these are like the plague rats that...
I was about to say plague carriers.
Yeah, that carry the plague of the marshmallow plague.
It's what makes all these zombies toxic and gross.
Yeah, that might be. I mean, who knows? Why not, right? So you're continuing along through this level, and eventually you find yourself dropped into the middle of this big courtyard with a statue in the center of it. And you end up getting swarmed again, swarms being the word of the day here, by these gelatinous ooze-like enemies, which are just straight a reference to an enemy from Demon Souls, the game that came before this, the Phalanx.
Yeah, I kind of liked them more in Demon Souls, I'm gonna be honest.
Why's that?
I don't know, something about their design. Because in Demon Souls, they looked like their own monster, but in this, they just look like kind of a mass of something holding a shield and holding a spear.
They have leg tails. So like they're basically an ooze with a skeleton inside, which I personally am always down with oozes with skeletons inside. But the way that the skeleton has been misarranged within the ooze makes it so that they have tail legs, which I always like. It's something that in Bloodborne Ludwig has as well. He has tail legs, and I think, I don't know, I like it. I like me a tail leg.
That's fair.
I think it's the same sort of uncanny thing where you're expecting a tail, but it's like a tail and not at the same time. So in the same way that like the birds are creepy because they're super tall when you expect them to not be, when you expect a person to not be that tall and spindly, the leg is like you're expecting a tail, but it's not a tail. Their faces are otherwise hollow, so these are, I don't know, if we're taking the marshmallow plague theory to its natural conclusion, maybe these guys are like the melted, you know how when you put a marshmallow in a fire and it gets all melty and toasty? These guys are the end state of the plague, where they just kind of melted and rearranged. They carry very Spartan-like equipment, so they carry shields, very Spartan-y shields and spears.
Circular kind of large bucklers.
Yeah, and the idea is that they form as a phalanx does, where they resist damage from the front, but are vulnerable in their tail legs on the back. So you want to be dodging around, kind of playing football. This is, Dark Souls tends to throw these like run around kind of enemies at you. Colloquially, it's called playing football, where you're trying to get the goal while running around these various things, these various hostels in the area. And so, yeah, you're running around behind them, trying to tag them from behind. And there are like, 13 of them. So it becomes kind of a problem. Vulnerable to fire, I believe, which is a holdover from the Demon Souls reference that they they are from.
Yeah. Are they only encountered in this one?
This
one room.
Yeah, this is the only place you get your phalanx.
That's interesting to me then, because phalanx in Demon Souls was the name of the boss.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's just this one room full of these things, which in Demon Souls would have been called hoplites.
Yeah.
But they are kind of collectively called phalanx.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just kind of...
Who knows? Maybe they threw the boss in here. They were like, get out of our lore.
At one point, there was phalanx here, but then they were like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like the Umbasa thing in Bloodborne. They're like, no, we can't just...
Yeah. So it's a pretty neat little encounter. They have like boxes in the area, so you can dodge spears while you're, you can use the crates as cover, the boxes in the area as cover while you're dodging left and right, trying to tag all these guys from behind. It's a neat little encounter.
I was just looking at the hoplites from Demon Souls just to see what they looked like in reference to this.
Yeah.
And they are more like... Hoplites used to be like ooze monsters.
Yeah.
Like they weren't a hollow who has become ooze, really. Yeah. I think they're just kind of...
Maybe more a reference in name and function rather than just straight taking the model and moving it.
I think they just might have been like... Because in Demon Souls... Because Dark Souls does this too, where they just have monsters.
Yeah.
I think Demon Souls had more just monsters.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so weird for them to just have ooze monsters. And they didn't have to be like, these used to be men!
Yeah.
Which is what kind of Dark Souls all leaned into.
Yeah.
At the end, is that everything was men once!
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I like everything was man once. If for no other reason than it gives something a lore and like a piece of... And like Demon Souls is more of a fantasy.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Demon Souls is definitely more of a fantasy action RPG.
Yeah, whereas Dark Souls, is a zombie game, effectively. So it has a lot more of these horror tropes. They don't drop special shields. I expect
you can't get their little...
No, they drop, like, you can't get phalanx shields. They drop shields, but they're just like leather shields.
Oh.
It's not the same shield as they drop, which is, I don't know, strange and out of place for a game that is, in part, all about getting cool loot from various monsters. Anyway. So you continue on in this level, and this is the only other place in the game where you find an undead dragon.
Yeah, I have a couple memories about this guy, but you tell me what he does, how he is. So from what I can remember, he's not super hard.
Yeah.
Much like the other one, the poison is pretty easily avoidable.
It depends. So it's on a bridge, lined with items, and you see the corpse off in the distance, and you're like, fool me once. So you run and you grab all the things, and sure enough, a bit of wing falls off of this undead dragon, and then it starts crawling along, leaving its lower half behind as it, is trying to get a piece of that player pie.
It just cuts itself in half.
Well, it just kind of leaves it behind. It slows off, in the same way that demons no longer have genitals. Legs are just a mode of transport that this thing no longer traffics in.
I have ascended beyond genitals and legs.
Oh. And it tries to nab a piece of your player meat, and it functions fairly similarly. You're not given quite enough space for it to be manageable, so it can hit from slightly farther, and its poison breath does slightly more, takes up more of the area than you would want, So and it has enough HP that it's not trivial. This is, however, a thing you can bypass more or less entirely by doing some extra exploration and getting, opening up a door that leads into another part of the bridge underneath that you can get pie. Get pie. Delicious. That you can get by without any problem.
Isn't it also, once you do kill it, if you go across the bridge, its legs are kind of like an obstacle you have to get over?
So that's a matter of some debate. So it leaves behind its legs on the bridge, and you can, if you jump power attack it, the legs will just stand up, but it happens so jarringly and so weirdly animated that it almost feels like it's a glitch.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it.
Like it's a bug in some sort of leg AI that makes it want to assume an idle stance when it's hit with that specific kind of attack.
Huh.
It's very weird, but it does mean that you can pass by it So like, you're on like a double bridge where you're on the top part of the bridge and then there's another part underneath, and the top part of the bridge is crumbled with the legs on it. So if you thwap them, they'll stand up and you can pass. You can jump onto the bottom part of the bridge. But it's
silly.
It is very silly and very strange. And these guys, you know, they look as they looked as we discussed. So they look like purple Freddy Kruegers in dragon form. They've got burned, well, not burnt, but like heavily decomposed skin.
Yeah.
Very hole-filled and riddled with, you know, mess and sinew. They still do the breath and claw attacks. I've been trying to think about why this dragon is here, and I wonder if it was maybe an ally or of some sort of the boss of this area.
I was gonna say, I assume heavily related, not blood related, but heavily related to the boss.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe it was like a dragon that got so uppity and figured out a way to kill the gods or something, and so they were like,
locked in here.
Yep,
in the painting.
Yep, throw it in the pit. It guards the blood shield, which is my favorite shield in the game.
What's the blood shield do?
The blood shield, it maxes your resistances across the board. Not maxes, but gives you resistance across the board, especially towards bleeding. But it's cool. It looks like a Red Cross shield. It has like a little blood teardrop on it, and it's red. And
that sounds neat.
Yeah, it's neat. It's the shield that I typically use throughout the game. It has 100% stability or 100% damage reduction, which you want in a shield.
Oh yeah.
It's like the awkward little brother in a level full of awkward little brothers of the other crest shields that you use throughout the game. Anyway, so you deal with this dragon, or if you were to bypass this dragon, you would need a certain key, which you find in a like underground sort of mini catacomb of this level, wherein you find some skeleton wheels.
Yay! Yeah. Everyone's favorite
skeleton wheel. They are pretty self-explanatory. Skeleton wheels. They're skeletons with a wheel, and the wheel has spikes on it, and they basically are like little roadster boys.
They exist for the sole purpose of being a Berserk reference.
Are they a Berserk reference?
Yeah, they are straight up a thing from Berserk, is skeletons that ride wheels.
Oh, like, there we go. It's I don't know. I must have missed that when I was doing research. Yes.
Unless Berserk stole it from Dark Souls, I have for sure seen a comic book page of a wheel skeleton.
Whee! No, I'm sure. I highly doubt that this is the one instance where that role has been reversed. So their roll is pretty rough. It can take you down to 0 HP pretty quickly and does a lot of stamina damage as well, so you can't block it easily. This is an enemy that pretty much their one thing is to leap out at you from the dark. So they're always, the 2 times you run into these enemies, they're situated in dark areas where you can't see them off in the distance. It's just another way the game gets you to be slow and methodical, because you can kind of get the drop on them if your shield's up and you're going around the perimeter of a room as opposed to barreling straight through. You can handle them fairly easily by kiting them along and whatnot.
Yeah, and they don't have a lot of health.
No, they don't have a lot of health. They just do a lot of damage. They're glass cannons.
Yeah.
There are also a bunch of hallways adjacent to this room that are very claustrophobic and, landing strip hallways that have these skeletons on either end, and it makes it very difficult to dodge their attacks. So you want to get yourself a good shield to make sure you can handle the death roll that this doom train of skeleton throws at you.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, you can get their shield. You can get their wheel as a shield.
Spin to win. Can?
Yeah, spin to win, baby.
I didn't know. Oh my god, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, spin to win. You spin it and it does damage, and spin to win. It's the lesser known in a level full of the awkward little brothers. This once again is another awkward little brother of the Sunbro. Spin to win being the lesser known meme.
Gotta love catchphrases.
Yeah. Oh, there they are. There's some skeletons and some wheels, and they're very damning.
They apparently show up in hordes.
Yeah. So you continue along on this bridge, and there's some hollows with the Tower Knight. We've talked about these things before. The difference being that the hollows swarm you as the Tower Knight attacks you. That being, a pretty hairy encounter. And then you get to the actual hairy encounter of this level, the boss fight against Crossbreed Priscilla.
To fight her though, right?
No, you don't have to fight her. You go in and she's non-hostile. She tells you that, what are you doing here? Whatever you're looking for, you're not going to find it. If you just jump off this plank, you'll be returned to your world and you'll be all right. But this is Dark Souls and this is Tooth and Nail, where we talk about fighting monsters. So
I don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, she's not a monster, so we just skip her entire.
Well, it's not only her worldview is interesting and suspect because she's like, this is a gentle place, and that isn't true. I was definitely harassed by skeletons and undead dragons.
Lady, I've been here for 35 minutes, and I want to say it's the opposite of what I just said.
It's been a problem for this boy. So, I don't know, there's probably an interesting character study of this character somewhere. She's the bastard child of some characters. It's most often the most common theory is that this is the child of Seath the Scaleless and Guinevere. I
always assumed that the mom was kind of like completely unknown. I didn't think there was any hints towards the mom, but Seath the Scaleless was always what I heard.
Yeah, so people think it's Guinevere just because she's big. And so, Priscilla is big and Guinevere is big, and the only person who could possibly give birth to such a big thing would be a goddess of that size.
But consider...
Yes.
The goddess Velka is her mom. Because there's a lot of items and miracles in this world about Velka, and also there's crow demons.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Anyone's guess is as good as anyone else's. I don't know why.
Velka is everyone's mom.
I mean, maybe. Who knows? I'm not versed enough in the lore. Maybe that kind of flips the script, and then it becomes like a safe place for Priscilla, as opposed to, well...
She seems to think it's a pretty safe place.
Yeah, maybe. The script... The item descriptions say that she was imprisoned here or thrown away into this cold and lonely place because of her special life hunt ability, which is, from what I can glean mechanically, it's like bleed but extra, which is like this sort of occult ability that can kill gods. And so she was imprisoned there, like everything that could kill God was put into this area.
Life Hunt is kind of a dumb name for a thing that doesn't really have a cool effect, but also what's cooler, God Bleed?
Yeah, I don't know. God Bleed is kind of neat. God Bleed sounds like a 90s band. I'd go to the God Bleed concert.
Man, have you seen Disturbed is fronting for God Bleed?
It's 2018. God Bleed sent out their 7th album. When will they die? So her fight is interesting. Well, we should probably talk about what she looks like. She's humanoid with some exceptions. She's very fuzzy. She's got like a dress sweater on.
I want everything to do with what her everything is made of.
Yeah,
it looks like the fluffiest sweater.
She is definitely the most snuggable Dark Souls boss. She's got yellow eyes, so she's like a half dragon woman. She's got yellow dragony eyes, and she's pale, she's pale and scaleless, which is why a lot of people assume Seath is her father, because he is also pale and scaleless. She's white all over, her hair is white, and she's covered in this soft, fluffy fur. Oh, and she's got a big old scythe.
Yeah.
Which is her life hunt scythe.
Yeah, that's... Is there any other scythe-wielding bosses aside from her?
No, I think this is your, death figure in this game. And I can't think of a scythe wielder in very many other instances. I'm sure there's another...
There's, maybe an NPC that has a scythe every now and then.
Yeah.
In, the other Dark Souls games, but I think,
Yeah, I think this is your scythe boss. This is your...
the only other scythe boss is also in a Painted World in a later game.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, but that is like an explicit reference to this one.
Oh yeah.
Weird that, but we'll talk about it someday in the future.
Yeah.
So the scythe is unnerving. What's more unnerving is she turns straight invisible as soon as you instigate any sort of combat with her.
Sure does. Blizzard invisibility.
Yeah, she summons in a blizzard and turns invisible. And then you're like, fuck, what do I do? But fortunately, there's snow all over. She's been hoisted on her own petard, I believe is how you pronounce that word.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's a phrase.
I'll give it to you.
That's a phrase. It means you fucked yourself over. She fucks herself over by summoning the snow. Because as you scramble from place to place, you notice eventually that there are footsteps coming in the snow, giant human-y footsteps that could only be to Priscilla, and it gives the invisibility away. What do you think about that as like a mechanic?
I really like it. I like, again, pushing forward, I like that invisibility more than I like Alfred's invisibility in Dark Souls 3. I like when there's like a very clear, you can see where they are if you're paying attention. The Alfrede, and it sucks that we have to like talk about this now. But the Dark Souls 3 reference to this referent has some kind of problems with it, because Priscilla is kind of a puzzle boss, right? You're supposed to figure out by yourself in this encounter that the feet stand for the Priscilla. But the puzzle aspect in the Dark Souls 3 Alfreda fight is very obscure. Once you figure it out, it's like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
But it's exactly that. It's sure.
Yeah. I can't remember what it is even, isn't it?
When
just that she
goes invisible, she dashes to the side, and whatever direction the snow goes is the direction she goes. Or it's dumb. The opposite. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But she like kicks off some snow, and the opposite direction is where she goes.
That's not as cool as this.
No, this is way better.
Yeah.
Priscilla in general is kind of like a really cool fight that a lot of, I don't know, I haven't done it much.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've only fought Priscilla once.
Yeah. Well, this is such an out of the way level, and it takes a little bit for you to get there. That, you know, why not? I like it quite a bit as well. She, in terms of her moveset, she only gets her blizzard invisibility. She has a blizzardy breath attack, and then she gets a couple of swings with her scythe, and that's about it. You can get her tail. You can get her tail for a dagger.
You can.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. It's best to do it before she turns invisible at all. So like, start your fight out with a weapon on her tail. But you get a dagger out of it, which is pretty cool. It's all flippy, you know. The moveset for the dagger makes you do flips and shit, and it's really neat.
Also, I don't know if we said explicitly, but the way to make her not invisible anymore is to either do enough damage to her that it just knocks her out, or do enough poise damage that she staggers, and that knocks her out of her invisibility. Yeah. So, like, just a good great bow shot will make her visible again.
Oh my god, I can't imagine hitting something invisible with a bow.
With a great bow, yes.
That would be pretty cool.
And then, there she is.
That would be a fun way to play Dark Souls. I've never tried to do a straight ranged build of a Dark Souls game before.
They make it so hard.
They do.
They make it almost impossible.
I think the only one where it would be fun to do would be in 3.
Where there's like actions and
where you can like do like the roll and then shoot arrows coming out of your roll. So that's Priscilla. And we leave the Painted World of Ariamis, and we continue back to Firelink Shrine in order to start killing some gods now. Now we've gotten to the point where we are trying to, you know, either link the fire, destroy it, and to do so we have to gather up the Lord souls and put them in the Lord vessel.
Yeah, it's time to slap some gods.
Yeah, so
take their souls.
Yeah, so now it's time for dudes to do Godsmack.
Yeah,
another 90s band. That should have died a long time ago.
God damn it.
So we continue in the Catacombs, and the very first thing that you fight is, well, along the way you pass through the graveyard that we've talked about before, full of skeletons and giant skeletons. The skeletons are flippy and do bleed. The giant skeletons are slower and do slap at you.
You'll find a theme for this and the next 2 levels.
Yeah.
A lot of skeletons.
A lot of fucking skeletons.
We'll probably not even have to talk about them that much, because a lot is just skeletons.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of the talking about this. Now it would be just, discussing their various configurations. So, the first unique enemy that we find coming into the Catacombs are these wisps. And these wisps, they're not so much an enemy as more of a trap. They're floating disembodied heads of hollows that explode when you get near them. So they chase you down. You typically find them on the edges of valleys and chasms. So, they're there to harass you as you are trying to traverse these fairly dangerous cliffs. You can use them to KO other opponents as well, though. So
they do friendly fire damage?
Yeah, they do friendly fire damage. So if you're clever, you can roll yourself out of the way and get one to explode another skeleton.
Moving forward towards the first bonfire, if you are just trucking it, trying to get to a bonfire so you don't have to run past all of these skeletons again, you may notice that while you're killing the skeletons, they might just be coming back.
Yeah, and that's a surprise if you don't know better, because why would you?
Unless you're lucky enough to just have a holy weapon, in which case that just kills them.
And then you're good.
but
no.
The reason that they are coming back is that there's just some old skeleton man sitting in the corner by a bonfire, casting his old magics.
Skeleton man. Get out of here.
You can be lame and call him an undead mage, but really...
Or a necromancer.
He a necromancer.
Yeah. Yeah, get yourself a wife, skeleton man.
Stop bugging me.
Yeah.
Stop casting your old magics.
Yeah. And these guys, they're kind of underwhelming in terms of visual design, because they're just zombies. They're just hollows in robes.
Zombies in robes. Really crappy robes.
Yeah, really.
Just with a little lantern torch thing. And then they go down in 1 or 2 hits.
Yeah, so yeah, these are another, similar to the rats, a lot of these guys' deal in terms of encounters is that they run away from you as you try to chase them down with hordes of skeletons at your butt. Skeletons, which, by the way, you start running into archer skeletons in here, which function, the same as an archer that is got skin, but it's a skeleton.
Ugh.
Yeah. You can take their heads as lanterns, which is kind of neat. It's explicitly stated that the skull lanterns that you get are the heads of these necromancers.
Oh, they're not the lanterns.
No, they're not the lanterns. That's what I thought too. Unless they're also using
the heads of
other necromancers. You just straight take their heads and use them as lanterns, which you should do, because this area, the deeper you go, the darker it gets. And you're going to need a light source of some sort, especially when you get into Tomb of Giants, which is just dark.
Also, just for visual representation, so anybody listening can really get a feel for what the Skull Lantern and the Necromancer are about. The Skull Lantern, you hold it by the long, scraggly, gross undead beard attached to the head.
Yeah.
You just kind of dangle a head about.
Yeah, and these hollows, they don't have beards, so they must be the heads of, older skeletons.
They found the old magic.
Yeah, so they run away from you, you chase them down, it's like a hard day's night. I actually kind of like that as a subversion on because Dark Souls at this point has already taught you to kill the long-ranged enemies first and kill the casters and support first, so it's fun to see them. It's fun to see this subversion on that encounter where they're running away from you, and then the skeletons swarm you, and it's a big old deal. Yeah. So there are some Black Knights and there are some Titanite prowling demons around in this area.
But I mean, after having gone through all the other areas so far, it's just a Sunday afternoon, really.
Yeah, more or less. The difference here is that the area is dark, and you fight at least the prowling demon in a hallway, so the area is tight as well. But nothing we haven't handled before, especially with the one in Anderlondo, which is just in a room.
Yeah.
You can handle it, no problem. As you continue along, you find the other place where bone wheel skeletons hang out in this big bottom of the chasm that the catacombs are built on. They hang out in the dark as well, but, you know, if you can keep yourself moving out of their role, you can kind of matador these guys without too much difficulty. And that leads us to the boss of the catacombs, which is kind of a non-starter. It leads us to Pinwheel.
Yep. Pinwheel, as I said in the first episode, I believe.
Yeah.
Really, to me, I don't know if... Maybe I'm doing it wrong, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Pinwheel is cool.
Yeah.
But maybe Pinwheel's worth a damn.
Maybe he's not a giant nerd.
Every time I go to Pinwheel, it feels like the fight's over within 30 seconds.
Yeah. And I don't know what the deal... I don't really know how to think of... This is the Pinwheel question, right? Pinwheel is an incredibly easy boss. He has, like, no HP.
He's got cool moves.
He's got cool moves, and he's got a cool gimmick. He makes clones of himself, perfect clones. So it's one of those kinds of caster fights where they do mirror image, and you gotta murder the illusion before they can swarm you. But he's got, like, no HP. And by this point, you know, you're slapping gods, so...
Yeah, you're like me. You come down with, like, a plus whatever greatsword, some paper. You just slap it on there, and suddenly Pinwheel's like, welcome to my arena. Oh, no! It just falls.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of... So you jump into this giant sarcophagus. He lives in a giant sarcophagus, which is pretty cool. It's filled with books and skeletons and stuff. I like it. You jump in and it's a cutscene where he's doing some sort of necromantic ritual on this skeleton. I'm all about it. He turns around and it's this robed figure with 3 heads with masks on them and 6 arms that have like sensors on the end of sticks, lanterns on the end of sticks. And the masks, you know, wiggle around all Japanese horror and then look at each other. The masks are all pretty cool. They're all like screaming faces. So there's a mother, a father, and a child, and they're all, you know, just yelling all the time. They're very mad about something. So you get like a big badass cutscene about this, but I don't know. It's kind of a non-starter because you can kill him really quickly. My theory is that maybe this guy was like, just because of the proximity that you find him near Firelink, maybe he was supposed to be like you take him on early fight.
I was gonna say maybe they underestimated how strong their skeletons were.
Yeah,
that people would come down here very soon.
Yeah, like maybe they were thinking like this is the reward for the persistent player. You get kind of a boss on your terms.
Yeah, but
yeah,
there's really no incentive to come through the catacombs early on because,
in fact, there's active incentive against it because then you have to walk all the way back up,
and everything is so strong. It's like,
yeah, it's weird. I wonder if it's maybe like a check-in kind of thing. Like maybe you're supposed to go all the way to Pinwheel, lose against him, come back later, then win, but that doesn't hold because...
I can't even imagine losing against Pinwheel.
Yeah, well, they don't even... And, like, that doesn't work either because they don't even have a shortcut back up to the top. Like, it's not like you get down to Pinwheel and it's easy to get back up again. It's... I don't know, it's a strange thing. And the thing you get for it, the Rite of Kindling, it gives you more Estus Flask, more healing potions, which, like, is useful for the early game. It's also like you're at the point where you should be having more potions.
Yeah, it really does feel like an early game boss pushed into the mid to late game.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a victory lap for beating up all those necromancers.
Like, here's your free one.
Yeah. Like he flies around a lot, but again, this is like a battle of numbers. Really, he just does not have enough health to make him a challenge. So you kill him and you get your Rite of Kindling, and then you move on to the Tomb of the Giants. And
is Tomb of the Giants where my favorite Dark Souls gift comes from?
Yes.
Okay, good.
This is the one you've seen. This is the one with the angry skeleton dog and the running away. If you've seen a Dark Souls gif, this would be the one if it's not the Thanks Obama gif. So you go into the Tomb of the Giants, and you're immediately arrested by the fact that this is so dark. This is such a dark area.
Oh my god.
So you better come correct with either a lantern that you picked up earlier, or there's another special helmet you can get. That's a bug that you put on your head that glows with magic. Yep.
That's a sentence.
Yep, it is. It's a Dark Souls sentence. So you continue in the dark, and the first enemy you're liable to fight are giant skeletons, similarly to the ones you fought up above.
With their giant falchions.
Yeah, they hit you with giant curved swords that you can get. They are more of a problem now because you can fight, a bunch of them at once, and they do a lot of knockback. So in this it's yet again, check that box. You can't have a Dark Souls level without a big, desperate, set of cliffs that make your life hell.
From Software really likes throwing people off cliffs.
Yeah, it's their favorite thing to do. But I guess a cliff is a good encounter design, right? Because you can turn that on the enemy as well if you kick them off the cliff.
Yes, that's true.
So it's a very neutral way to make your encounter more exciting.
Aside from giant skeletons, what do we got down here? We got giant skeleton dog things?
You do. Real quick point, the giant skeletons, they have glowy eyes, which you can kind of see in the dark, and that gives you that at least tips you off that there are giant skeletons at hand. They come in archer flavor as well, and those ones hang out in the dark and shoot arrows at you, which is a problem. The other kind of skeleton that you find is that famous skeleton dog skeleton, the skeleton beast. They're...
I definitely wouldn't say dog, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah, so they're known alternatively as skeleton beasts or skeleton dogs. They got like primate skulls.
Yeah, they are humanish.
Yeah, they're definitely more human than bestial, though they move on all fours and they have elongated tails. They're definitely the bones of humans, leading me to wonder what the fuck.
It's just Nito having fun.
Yeah.
Just throwing stuff together.
Look what I made.
It's a pet.
I guess so. I mean, you got all these skeletons. What else are you going to do with them?
Aside from wear them.
Yeah. And it's a very boring fashion season in the Catacombs. It's always skeleton dresses. What was I talking about?
Bestial skeletons.
Yeah, so these guys, they're quick. They get in and they slap at you with their claw arms. They hang out in the dark. They don't have glowy eyes, so it's supposed to be as we've seen in the GIF, kind of like a jump scare when they leap out at you from the dark. When you kill... So, this is one of my favorite things about this level, is that when you kill either the giant skeletons or these skeleton beasts, they freeze in place for a second and then explode into bones. It's really funny that for them to be like, am I dead now? Yeah, I'm dead. And then what would make it better is if there was a xylophone on the track for whenever the bones hit a hard surface.
Just replace all bone clatter sounds with xylophones. That would be so great.
It'd be pretty good time. There's a Black Knight in here on a catwalk. It is made troublesome because of the catwalk in the dark, but
if you're good at parrying.
Yeah, if you're good at fighting Black Knights, which you ought to be at this point, you can handle them. Yeah, this is the point where the game is are you sure you can fight Black Knights? Have one in the dark and on a catwalk. There you go.
If you can do this, you can do anything.
Yeah. You continue along, and if you get thrown into a pit by a certain NPC, you are liable to find some more NPCs. But most importantly, you're going to find yourself a bone tower. And a bone tower is pretty much how it sounds. It's like a bunch of skeletons stacked on top of each other. They got wiggly arms, and they're mostly ambush enemies because they pop out of the ground, and they can block your forward progress fairly easily because you mostly run into them in kind of narrow passages. So they burst out in front of you, and then they block your ability to move forward. There's this really kind of devious part where you're on a catwalk, you're on a cliffside, and one bursts out in front of you, and then there's a skeleton archer behind that one that takes it. So you're like kind of stuck in place, and the only thing you can do is dodge arrows and then slap down that bone tower before you continue.
Some evil enemy placement.
Yeah. Apparently they're weak to fire if they weird you out and remind you of like centipedes or something. So you can kill them.
Fire.
Yeah, you can burn it with fire.
You know, I do not, for the life of me. I'm thinking, I'm like putting all my mental processes in it. Bone towers are not a thing I remember.
Yeah. They happen when
I zoned them all out. I was like, yeah.
When you get kicked into the Patches pit,
yeah,
they're there. And then there are some other little places where you like pick up an item and then they pop out of the ground. They have like a little tree trunk fall attack where they fall on you from a distance, so they got some range to them. Timber! And then they slap on you.
That sounds great. How did I forget them?
Yeah, they're pretty all right. From here on out, we get some good skeletons, because the ones after this are the Pinwheel Servants, which like are pinwheel but smaller, which is kind of good because you're running into what is, you know, a good thing in game design where you're finding bosses as regular enemies now. But this entire arena where you find these Pinwheel Servants, these little lesser pinwheels, there are a bunch of tiny little babies. Tiny little skeleton babies.
Oh my god, there is.
Yeah.
I had totally forgotten.
Yeah, they pop out the ground, and they're just like a swarm of them that pile on you Dead Space style.
Man.
Yeah.
That is 3 levels in a Dark Souls Bloodborne game where I'm not cool. Now this, I hate skeleton babies. Bloodborne, I hate goopy eel babies.
Yeah.
Demon Souls, there's a blood lake full of miscarriage babies.
They got babies?
Oh my god.
Wow.
It's horrendous.
I'm down with enemy babies.
I hate it. It's just blood.
It's creepy. It's, you know, nobody wants to punch a baby, but here we are. I wonder, because it's kind of funny and ironic too, because this is the Tomb of the Giants, but you run into babies. Tiny little babies.
Well, they might be giants.
I told you never to reference that band around me.
You already needed Godsmack. Let me have it.
All right, I'll give you They Might Be Giants if you give me Godsmack. So you're running away from this horde of babies and slapping on these pinwheels. The babies are definitely there to harass you. They're definitely not there to be, you know, picked off one by one, because Dark Souls is not good for fighting things that are smaller than you. So you so you're trying to kill these pinwheels, and while I'm thinking about it, I wonder if like a pinwheel is just a greater necromancer. Like they come in stages where there's necromancer regular hollows, and then there's pinwheels, and then there's Pinwheel the Boss, which like stole the right of, so like Pinwheel the Boss stole this power, this right of kindling from Nito, which is the god of death basically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he's big and powerful. So I wonder if like a pinwheel is just
3 necromancers.
Yeah, they just hugging together. They're trying to get into an adult movie, so they piled all up into one cloak.
3 necromancers in a trench coat.
Yeah, and they're trying to go see My Bloody Valentine, but they can't do that. They're not old enough. I don't know why that was the movie I jumped to.
I don't know. I was like, what's a good movie? And then you said that one, and I'm like, no, that wasn't one.
They're trying to see Caddyshack. But that movie's got boobies in it.
Yeah, they can't see that.
Maybe it's a bunch of skeleton babies. Who knows?
Just Pinwheel is just a pile of skeleton babies.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're trying to get at you. They're trying to turn you into a trench coat for their...
Oh, God.
Yeah. That got dark. Skeleton babies don't fuck around. That brings us to, once you deal with the nursery, you push on and fall into this crevasse where we fight the boss of this area and our first Lord Soul, Gravelord Nito.
He's pretty neato.
Real fucking neato! And this is a big skeleton made of skeletons with a skeleton face and a darkness cloak.
Yep. That's his fashion sense is skeletons.
Yeah.
And he does skeleton things. He has a sword made of skeletons.
He does. He is a skeleton-y boy. And like the skeleton parts that aren't used as his body are just dangling there like they're hanging. So they're like legs that are hanging off and arms and whatnot, and it's pretty neat. It's real fucking neato. This is really like neither here nor there, but Gravelord is kind of a cool word. It sounds like
absolutely
a 90s, and can't keep away from the 90s, but it sounds like a 90s anti-hero, like he would fight crimes with the Punisher.
No, for sure. Gravelord is definitely like the sub-tag of a D&D character I'm gonna make at some point.
That's pretty good. So you're in this arena that's like a giant donut where there's a big stalagmite in the middle of this cave area, and Nito, he comes to unlife and climbs his way out of his giant sarcophagus and dons his cloak of darkness, and you end up having it ends up being like a swarm fight where he summons in a bunch of skeletons that come at you, and he ends up summoning in progressively harsher skeletons as the fight goes on. So you start with tiny skeletons, and then he summons in giant skeletons. And this is kind of a cramped area, so you can get swarmed fairly easily. Fortunately, while Nito is swinging a sword at you, he also has this miasma attack, where he summons in a big poisonous shockwave that takes out all of the skeletons around you. So it ends up being this thing where you're trying to bait him to do this move that has a big AoE, so you dodge out of the way, all the skeletons go down, and then you rush in and try to get as much damage in as you can while the skeletons are down, because Nito acts as like the highest tier necromancer. All these skeletons raise up again after they go down.
Does Nito in the fight, I'm having trouble, does he do the Gravelord attack?
Yeah.
Well, he does?
Yeah, so he does the Gravelord attack. He swings at you with the sword, and then he thrusts the sword in the ground, and it pops up at you, and it does some poison damage as well. Nito is like so there's a covenant, group of people, like a clan you can join, called the Pinwheel Servants, and you get his sword, you get Nito's sword for joining them, and it has the special attack where you thrust it in the ground, and then it pops up and does some damage. He's much better at it than you are.
Good. Naturally.
Yeah. So, like, I find that the miasma thing, like the having the skeleton swarm in and then him exploding all the skeletons in the area, I think that's a good bit of risk reward and a nice, like, way to expand on the swarm encounter.
For sure, because especially since they come back to life, having to kill them over and over again while also fighting Nito would be like, yeah, Dark Souls is hard, but that would be like the not fun kind of hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, doing this fight over again, I think that's the point where you're supposed to hold out against these skeletons and wait for Nito to plow them all out and then do your damage while you can. And I think that it is kind of fun, and I think Nito gets a lot of love for being a big, outrageous skeleton, but I think the encounter works well as well, and at least, I think, especially since the game has been, or at least the levels have been teaching you how to deal with hordes of skeletons, this is probably the best way that this encounter could have gone, where you're dealing with a horde of skeletons over time.
He doesn't summon any wisps in here, does he?
No, there are no wisps.
That would have been kind of an interesting little wrench to throw into the horde of skeletons.
Or even like, a mini boss before that, where there was like a similar setup as Nito, where you're fighting a horde of skeletons and then there were wisps that you can like lead into the crowd to detonate them.
Let's theorycraft. Pinwheel's fight could have been better if he was like Tiny Nito.
I don't think Pinwheel's fight is bad. Is the thing, I think it's literally just a numbers game, where if Pinwheel had, 1,000 more HP or whatever, he would have been a more interesting boss fight.
Yeah, all right.
Because I do think, well, I don't know, it depends how much mileage you get, because Pinwheel's boss fight is just, not to fucking brush Nito under the rug while we talk about Pinwheel some more, but I think that the the mirror image thing, that's it's a fine fight. It's something that I've seen before, so like maybe Pinwheel is fine with having just the right amount of health that he has,
I guess so, yeah. I don't know, I feel like it could have done with even just like 4 little skeleton ads in the room. Just 4.
No.
But Pinwheel acts as a necromancer and they come back.
No.
4 skeletons is easy to deal with.
Yeah.
But it's just something to make the Pinwheel fight last just a little longer.
Yeah.
Make it so you don't focus all your damage on him, making the fight end in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Then, I don't know, then Nito would have felt redundant, though.
I guess so. And Nito kind of feels very rewarding, as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I can't stand that there is a boss that gets a whole health bar that is so trivial.
Yeah. And there's some controversy like that in Dark Souls 2 as well, where certain enemies that are non-issues get big old title cards and boss music as well. I think you're right. I think that on the whole, I'd rather have oh my god, there's this weird enemy in here that turned, like, if Pinwheel didn't have a title like a boss thing, it would be just like this interesting enemy that shows up and does all sorts of weird shit. But the way that it is now, we're thinking about what could have been as opposed to what is an interesting, like what could have been an interesting encounter without all of the trappings of a boss fight.
That's true.
Yeah, like if Pinwheel just hung around and did, the mirror image thing, that would have been, like, cool.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It really is like the gravitas of having a boss HP bar that makes me feel like he's not cool.
Yeah.
But, like, as just an enemy, he is cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess you're right.
But then, it depends on how much you think the mirror image thing is cool.
I think it's pretty cool.
You think it's cool?
Yeah. I like that he can make clones of himself, and they all cast the spells, right?
Yeah, they all cast the spells.
I love Mirror Image for doing that.
Yeah.
In D&D, I love that
in the Dungeons and
Mirror
Dragons
Image does that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I suppose. I like, thinking about it, I like it because it fits the theme of dealing with a horde of something, of trying to bait back a big swarm of pinwheels. In the same way that you're spending the entire level trying to bait back a horde of skeletons. And then again in Nito when you're dealing with a horde of skeletons. But in that one, Nito's the one who baits back the skeletons, not you. And that's what makes him Necromancer of the Year.
Nito is the one who baits. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, baiting Nito.
So you did it. You killed your first lord.
Yeah, you killed your first god. Take that. And you get your...
That god.
Take that, god. So you get your first lord soul, and that's where we're going to end it here. Having done this major victory, and look into, I'm coming for you next, other gods.
Yeah, somebody else.
I've decided, what do you want to do next? Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could decide here. Do you want to do the archives?
The archives is the one that I think I'm the least familiar with, so it might be good to go through it.
Yeah, archives has got some cool shit. Yeah,
I like learning about stuffs.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do next. We'll do the archives, and then we can do we can finally go back and hit the back half of Darkroot Garden and do Sif, and then we can do New Londo Ruins.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Which is like the extension of that quest line.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So look forward to that. If you have enjoyed this time, do the thing that people do when they enjoy things nowadays and click buttons.
Yeah, desecrate the like button.
Yeah, just murder that like button.
Give the old sacrificial altar ritual to the subscribe button.
Yeah, bleed upon it. And call in the Eldritch Horrors.
To leave comments.
To leave comments, yeah. comment your comment in this existential vacuum.
Yeah, leave us some inane ramblings that the eldritch horrors have embedded into your mind.
I promise you, I'll respond to it. I've got nothing better to do. And maybe talk about like what you'd like to see going forward. Like, I don't know, D&D monsters, or maybe games in the future you'd like to see. And yeah, we'll do them. Why not?
My Little Pony adventures, you know, like whatever monsters.
You can't see it, but I buried my face in my hands at the prospect of that.
Don't say that one, please.
Please. But that's that. What horrifying monstrosity should they watch? Should they keep an eye out for?
Well, watch out inside you, because there's a skeleton in you.
Ah! Keep an eye out on that skeleton!